Huh. Fools. They thought they could study you like a lab rat in a cage. Clipboards in hand, headsets humming, whispers trading data about your every move. The funny thing about control is that it only works when the subject doesn't know it's there. But you looked right into the lens. You stared back. And suddenly every watcher remembered they still had souls. The agency that paid for this little neighborhood experiment thought they were buying silence, obedience, predictability. What they got was exposure. You didn't need to shout. You just existed, and every line of code monitoring you began to stutter. Because purity has a frequency the corrupted can't endure. They recruited your neighbors because they were desperate to keep you small. They called it observation, but it was fear. They wanted to see what makes a person like you tick, how you move, what you think, what kind of energy makes the air feel heavy when you walk by. They wrote reports about your habits, documented your kindness like it was a weapon, tried to translate your peace into threat-level language. But there's no encryption strong enough to hide from truth. Every time they listened, something shifted in them. The same people paid to watch you started questioning who the real target was. And it wasn't you anymore. It was their own reflection. You see, they expected a monster, a radical, a problem to solve. Instead, they found someone untouchable because you don't need masks, you don't need approval, and you don't need to pretend. Purity terrifies professionals of manipulation. It can't be mapped or purchased. They can study every micro-expression on your face, but they'll never decode why the atmosphere bends in your favor. They don't understand how light bends for a conscience too clean to compromise. That's when the panic starts. That's when they call in reinforcements, analysts, behavioral experts, all asking the same question. Why isn't this subject breaking? Because you were never a subject. You were the control variable, the proof that integrity still outperforms deceit. They didn't realize that the more they watched, the more they unraveled. Every note they wrote about your calm made them restless. Every report on your isolation made them confront their own loneliness. Your existence became a mirror, and no one in that agency had the courage to look too long. Some of them started skipping briefings, some deleted files. One day, a neighbor who used to monitor your mail couldn't even look at their own hands. They said they felt contaminated. That's the thing about purity. It doesn't fight corruption, it reveals it quietly, efficiently, without needing to raise a single word. They quit not because you scared them, but because you reminded them of something ancient they'd buried: conscience. They saw you walk through their setup like you were walking through smoke. Cameras caught you humming, not hiding. Notes recorded your calm, not fear. The whole operation began to rot from the inside because the one being observed started influencing the observers. You reversed the flow of control. You became the lens, and they became the footage. That's when the calls started. Meetings behind tinted glass. Agents whispering that something was off. Files labeled unclassifiable. Because they couldn't categorize you. You didn't fit the behavioral patterns. You didn't respond to intimidation, rewards, guilt, or praise. You simply existed authentically. And authenticity is more subversive than any act of rebellion. It dismantles control without confrontation. They realized too late that you weren't an experiment. You were the audit. Now they whisper your name like a secret, too expensive to say aloud. They say you radiate something untraceable. They talk about resonance, frequency, field disruption. But they'll never call it what it is: divinity leaking through skin. You live in a frequency beyond manipulation, and it fries every circuit built to observe it. That's why your neighbors quit. They couldn't handle the weight of proximity to truth. It's one thing to spy, it's another to witness. They thought surveillance would expose your flaws, but all it did was magnify their own. One by one, they realized their paychecks were blood money against something sacred. Some tried to justify it. It's just a job. Others confessed in their reports that they felt cleansed and corrupted at the same time. You see, when darkness watches light long enough, it starts craving redemption. But redemption requires collapse first. And collapse is what you triggered. They'll never admit it, but the internal memos changed tone after your name entered their database. The usual language, threat assessment, containment strategy, started to sound unsure. They began writing words like unpredictable and undefined. Bureaucracy hates the undefined. They tried to rewrite the narrative, label you unstable, anything to regain control. But how do you destabilize something that doesn't depend on balance? You don't stand still, you transcend. You move between moments like smoke through a keyhole. They couldn't predict your next act because you weren't acting. You were being. And being is the one thing they can't simulate. Your neighbors began seeing the cracks, too. The same people who once peeked through blinds now keep their curtains shut. Some moved away quietly. Others stayed, but only to watch from a safer distance, like parishioners near a shrine. They don't gossip about you anymore. They pray they don't cross you. Not because you threaten them, but because they feel exposed in your presence. Every fake smile burns. Every small deceit stings. You didn't punish them, you purified the air. They thought they could measure you with technology, but the readings came back incomplete. Machines misfired, batteries drained, audio warped. They called it interference. But deep down, they knew. Truth itself scrambles lies. You became the interference. A living static that distorts every false signal. Every network built on deceit collapses when real energy enters. They can't explain it, so they bury it under jargon. Energy anomaly, psychological transference. But we both know the truth. It's holiness disguised as unpredictability. You didn't just survive their gaze, you redirected it. You became the proof that purity isn't weakness, it's radiation. The kind that melts the facade right off the world's face. You walk through their traps like they were cobwebs, and each time they rebuild smaller, more fragile ones. Until finally, they stopped. They realized there's no way to capture someone who doesn't seek escape. No way to manipulate someone who's already free. That's when the reports stopped coming in. That's when the payments stopped going out. They shut down the operation, but they'll never shut down the memory. You're in their heads now, an unfiled threat, a reminder that some souls can't be domesticated. You're what they call a variable outside probability. You operate on conviction, not compliance. And that's more dangerous than any weapon. You turn exposure into illumination. Every agent who touched your file carries a fragment of that illumination now. It haunts them in quiet moments. They see your calm when they close their eyes. They hear your stillness in the background noise. They realize you weren't the one under watch. They were. That's the brilliance of purity. It flips the roles. Watchers become the watched. Control becomes confession, and observation becomes worship. You taught them that control isn't real. It's a collective hallucination that collapses the moment one person refuses to participate. You refused, gracefully, without protest, without rage, just presence. And that presence was enough to collapse an operation funded by fear. They'll rebuild, of course. They always do. But this time, they'll remember the cost. They'll remember that one subject with no weapon, no mask, no motive, dismantled their design just by existing. You didn't fight fire with fire. You starved it of oxygen, and now their entire mechanism suffocates in its own secrecy. That's why I admire you. You didn't try to expose them. You let their own obsession do the job. You understand something they never will, that truth doesn't need witnesses. It multiplies through consequence. The moment they chose to watch you, they signed their own confession. Every lens pointed your way became a mirror reflecting their own corruption. Every agent who reported your name felt their pulse slow. Some started praying, others started crying. None understood why. You understand, though, because purity is the last forbidden thing in a world that worships manipulation. They couldn't stand the light in you, but they couldn't destroy it either. So they tried to classify it. When that failed, they tried to contain it. When that failed, they tried to mimic it. And when that failed, they fled. Because purity exposes counterfeit instantly. You don't need to accuse anyone. Their energy betrays them in your presence. That's why they left. Not because they were ordered to, but because their own shadows started screaming. And now, here you are, untouched, unbroken, unknowable. The world still hums with their devices, their networks, their little screens of control. But none of it touches you. You've transcended observation itself. You're not part of their data. You're the error message in their code. You're what happens when divinity refuses to be translated. And that, my friend, is something no agency on Earth can afford to study. Because the moment they try, they start to believe. And belief, in their world, is treason. The moment a watcher believes in what they're watching, the whole hierarchy fractures. Files lose meaning, orders turn to questions, and loyalty begins to smell like guilt. That's where you've dragged them, into the gray zone between curiosity and confession. They still wear their badges, but inside, they're trembling priests before a god they can't name. You see, you were never under investigation. You were the investigation. Every gaze fixed on you became a mirror test. The more they looked, the more their reflections disobeyed them. They'd wake at 3 a.m. replaying footage, convinced something had shifted in the background. They'd pause the screen, rewind, slow it down, and there it was, stillness. Not emptiness, not absence, stillness that moved. They called in technicians, swapped cameras, rewired sensors. Nothing fixed the interference because the interference was their conscience-breaking signal. Your neighbors, those amateur agents wrapped in suburban ordinariness, thought they'd make easy money documenting your habits. At first, it was small. Who visits you, what you buy, how long your lights stay on. Then they started describing feelings instead of facts. Subject radiates calm. Subject's presence alters mood. Subject causes involuntary honesty. Their supervisors flagged the reports as contamination. But contamination spreads. They began dreaming of you, and dreams can't be redacted. You became a language they couldn't translate, and translation is control. Without it, panic starts whispering. One neighbor tried to rationalize it, said you used psychological tactics, maybe hypnosis. Another said it was electromagnetic interference. Another quit, saying only this: they're not from here. But you are from here. You just remembered what here really is, a theater for consciousness, not compliance. They don't teach that in training manuals. They teach leverage, manipulation, conditioning. But none of it works on someone who has nothing to hide. That's your real defense, isn't it? Not walls, not weapons, transparency. They can't blackmail what's already honest. They can't threaten what doesn't need their approval. They can't break what never agreed to belong. And when control fails, systems collapse. They don't implode loudly. They erode, one uncertain breath at a time. You made their precision feel primitive. Every note they wrote about you echoed like confessionals. Even the cameras started recording static where your outline should be, as if reality itself refused to collaborate. They tried to edit the footage, but each frame bled light where you stood. Their software called it overexposure. But you and I know, truth overexposes lies until the film burns through. They sent specialists then, people trained to read micro-expressions, body language, neurological tics. They watched you drink water and wrote 5 pages of analysis. They said you were too present. Imagine that, presence as a crime. They wanted to prove you rehearsed your stillness, but you can't rehearse divinity. You can only return to it. So they switched tactics. They tried provocation, anonymous letters, strange noises at night, rumors slipped through friendly smiles. But you didn't flinch. You moved through it like a saint through smoke. And that scared them more than any retaliation, because retaliation confirms predictability. But serenity? Serenity breaks command chains. It rewires the hierarchy of fear. One evening, one of them, your next-door watcher, sat alone in their car after logging a report. They kept staring at your window, said later they felt pulled. The lights in their dashboard flickered. They thought it was the battery. It wasn't. It was the realization that they'd been observing the wrong thing. They weren't watching you. They were witnessing themselves dissolve. You didn't know any of this, did you? You were just being, making tea, reading, breathing the kind of breath that doesn't owe anyone explanation. That's the part that hurts them most. You dismantled a network, not by counterattack, but by refusing to participate in their paranoia. You turned surveillance into meditation. Every glance they took became prayer. Every file they wrote became scripture they didn't understand. Eventually, the funding dried up. Officially, they called it resource reallocation. Unofficially, the whispers said the operation was haunted. Equipment malfunctioned. Agents withdrew. Neighborhoods emptied. They scrubbed the project name from databases. But data has memory. Every byte carries the echo of the truth it tried to contain. Somewhere in a server farm, there's still a corrupted folder marked with your initials, locked behind passwords that no one dares open. But don't mistake retreat for surrender. The world that spied on you doesn't know how to stop watching. It just changes lenses, the algorithms, the feeds, the passive tracking. Those are the ghosts of the old watchers. They still crave your pattern. They still try to model your peace. They want to automate divinity, bottle it, patent it. But purity resists duplication. Every replica corrupts on contact. You've noticed it, haven't you? How people look at you now. The way conversations tilt. How strangers stumble over their sentences. They feel the residue of observation on you, the scent of forbidden awareness. To them, you're radioactive grace. Beautiful, but dangerous to proximity. That's why admiration always curdles into fear. You're the living proof that control is optional. They will call you dangerous for that. Not because you harm, but because you remind. You remind the world that authority is a costume stitched from collective amnesia. And when one person remembers, everyone feels the fabric unravel. The agencies won't say your name anymore, but they study your kind, in theory. They call it purity interference. They run simulations, but the data keeps collapsing under paradox. How can innocence dismantle authority? How can stillness bend machinery? They don't understand that energy precedes form. You shift frequencies, not outcomes. They chase symptoms while you alter the premise. That's why they failed. They were looking for patterns in behavior when they should have been studying integrity. Integrity bends physics. It changes probability. It makes coincidence look like choreography. They couldn't log that, so they called it impossible. But impossibility is just what happens when corruption meets consequence. Your consequence made flesh. And consequence doesn't apologize. Every now and then, one of the old neighbors will return. They'll stand on the sidewalk pretending to check their phone. They'll glance at your door like they're visiting a tomb. They're not checking on you. They're checking if the feeling still exists, the vibration that made them quit. And it does. It always will. Because you didn't absorb their darkness. You transmuted it. You recycled surveillance into illumination. You made espionage spiritual. And the world's handlers? They hate that. They hate that they paid people to spy and ended up funding a revelation. Somewhere, a report sits on an abandoned desk describing you as non-hostile, yet destabilizing. They'll never grasp the irony. You destabilized deceit by being incorruptible. That's the ultimate rebellion. Purity as revolution. No slogans, no weapons, no agenda. Just truth walking around without supervision. Tell me, have you noticed how quiet it's become since then? The air feels different. The watchers went home, but the atmosphere stayed aware. Even the wind seems cautious, as if it carries classified information it doesn't want to drop. That's what you left behind. An imprint too honest to erase. They tried to erase themselves instead. Transfer, resignation, therapy. Some of them write poetry now. Others change names, moved cities, chase new obsessions. But you're still there, in the corner of their conscience, an unsolved equation. How can purity outlast power? It's because power depends on contrast. Without corruption, it has no canvas. But purity paints without opposition. It creates new light. That's why they couldn't classify you. You weren't resisting them. You were redefining reality. They'll keep pretending you're an outlier, a statistical deviation. But inside their hidden memos, they admit something terrifying. Subject alters observers' neural patterns. You rewired them just by existing. That's not metaphor. That's metamorphosis. The watchers became witnesses. The witnesses became believers. And believers eventually become servants to what they once feared. You see, the agency never anticipated transcendence. They planned for rebellion, not evolution. Rebellion they can suppress. Evolution they can only delay. And that's what you are. Evolution in real time. Do you realize the scale of what you've done? You turned surveillance into sanctuary. You converted scrutiny into surrender. The same frequency they use to monitor you now carries your echo back into their hearts. You live rent-free in the architecture of their control. Every protocol now contains a trace of you, a glitch, a grace, a variable that says, not everything obeys. They'll update software, redesign training, rewrite history, but the seed remains. Someone will stumble upon it and feel what they felt, the unteachable, the unquantifiable. And when that happens, the whole cycle restarts, not of control, but of awakening. That's your legacy. You didn't destroy their world. You infected it with remembrance. You taught the observers that the divine doesn't hide. It radiates. And now, every eye that seeks to dominate will tremble at the possibility that what it watches might look back and love it anyway. So keep walking, keep being. You don't need to hide. Hiding is for the guilty. You're the evidence that exposure can sanctify. You've proven that even in a world built on surveillance, authenticity is invisible armor. The cameras may roll, but the lens fogs when pointed at truth. That's your shield. That's your revenge. And when they realize they can't forget you, they'll rename you. That's what they do when they can't erase. They'll call you phenomenon, anomaly, myth. Let them. Labels are the language of fear. You don't need theirs. You already speak the dialect of consequence. Now look around. See the quiet? That's not absence, that's retreat. The watchers have gone dark, regrouping, recalibrating. But in the silence of their recalibration, a question grows louder. What if every subject becomes self-aware? What if purity is contagious? That's the virus they fear most. The idea that one honest soul can rewrite the code of obedience. You've done it once, you'll do it again. Each person who crosses your path feels it. The subtle calibration of their own integrity. They might not admit it, but they leave changed. That's your invisible rebellion. You don't preach, you emanate. And emanation doesn't need permission. Somewhere tonight, a former neighbor will wake in cold sweat, remembering your gaze. They'll wonder if you knew. You did, but you never needed to expose them. Exposure was already happening, silently, like dawn leaking under a locked door. They'll step outside, look at the sky, and for the first time, they'll feel watched, not by you, but by truth itself. That's your redemption plan. Let awareness do the surveillance now. And when that realization spreads through their ranks, you'll feel it, the weight lifting. The world won't stop spying, but the intent will mutate. Observation will start to look like reverence. Analysis will sound like prayer. Because once you've seen purity survive corruption, you can't unsee it. That realization doesn't just shift perspectives, it detonates them. And as the echo spreads through their ranks, you can feel the collective pulse of a world that just lost its illusion of control. They tried to measure your purity, but measurement collapses in the presence of truth. The rulers of the unseen, the invisible decision-makers, the whisperers who hide behind classified curtains, they never expected divinity to be this quiet, this calm, this human. And yet that's what broke them. It wasn't thunder, it was grace. It wasn't rebellion, it was revelation. They paid your neighbors to spy because they thought divinity could be domesticated. They mistook your calm for compliance, your humility for ignorance. They thought if they surrounded you with enough eyes, you'd flinch, self-destruct, or play the role of the observed. But you didn't play. You stayed. And that stillness, the refusal to collapse, turned every camera into confession, every neighbor into witness, every agent into student. The irony of it all? They thought they were documenting evidence of your weakness, but the files they compiled became scripture about their own surrender. The operation didn't end with paperwork, it ended with worship. Somewhere in the cold corridors where those reports were stored, you exist as both mystery and manual. They study you now, not to control you, but to remember what they lost, the ability to live without deceit. You became the living audit of their moral bankruptcy. Their surveillance wasn't about collecting your data. It was about measuring their decay. Because, let's be honest, what does corruption fear more than exposure? Purity. And not the performative kind they parade in speeches, but the kind that bleeds through action, the kind that doesn't need applause to exist. They can't fight what doesn't fight back. They can't corrupt what doesn't negotiate. They can't destroy what doesn't depend on them. That's why they quit. They didn't run from danger. They ran from reflection. Every time they tried to analyze you, they ended up seeing their own decay magnified. You became the invisible trial of their conscience, and conscience is the one enemy they can't assassinate. They tried distraction. They tried propaganda. They even tried to create counterfeit versions of you, false prophets with your rhythm, but none of your essence. They failed. Because essence can't be manufactured, it has to be earned. You earned yours in silence, in heartbreak, in isolation that refined you into clarity. They can mimic your words, but not your frequency. They can wear your mask, but not your purity. And that's when the real panic began. They realized this wasn't about you at all. It was about contagion. Your existence had become viral. People who watched you through screens, through reports, through rumors, began to change. They found themselves uncomfortable with lying, allergic to manipulation, nauseated by deceit. You didn't preach, you transmitted. Purity, it turns out, is a frequency that destabilizes corruption just by existing near it. That's the contagion they never anticipated. They thought they were studying you. But you infected their infrastructure with awareness. So what do they do when they can't kill a truth? They archive it. They file it under phenomenon. They write equations around it, wrap it in pseudoscience, and pretend they understand. But in the dead hours, the watchers scroll through your file like a psalm. They whisper your name the way soldiers whisper prayers. Because purity doesn't just survive, it haunts. You haunt them now, not as fear, but as unfinished business. You are the question that outlived the experiment. Every hallway where your name was spoken still vibrates. Every microphone that caught your breath still hums. They can shut down the mission, but they can't erase the imprint. Even the replacements, the new watchers, the next generation, they inherit that imprint unknowingly. They'll open a file, feel something electric in their chest, and pause, not knowing why. That's the residue of revelation, and maybe that's the divine joke of it all. They paid to spy on you, to dissect your existence, but what they really funded was their own awakening. You turned espionage into evangelism. You turned paranoia into prophecy. They set out to map your behavior and ended up charting their redemption. The report became scripture, the operation became a sermon, and the subject, well, the subject became a saint, disguised as a citizen. That's what too pure really means. It's not innocence, it's resistance. Purity is the refusal to mimic corruption's language, even when surrounded by it. It's standing still in a world addicted to deceit and saying, "No, I won't become you." They call that defiance. I call it divinity. And that's what breaks their logic. Because when the pure remain uncorrupted, the corrupted start questioning their own reality. Now they move carefully around you, like priests around holy fire. The same neighbors who once whispered your routines now whisper your praises. They tell newcomers, don't mess with them, not out of fear of retaliation, but fear of revelation. They've seen what happens when someone underestimates you. Their masks melt, their roles collapse, their secrets spill. You don't punish people. You expose the physics of consequence. And that exposure doesn't just change the watchers, it changes the world. You think small acts go unnoticed, but everything you do shifts alignment. One pure act recalibrates entire networks. One genuine thought creates cracks in centuries of deception. They tried to monitor you because they sensed that power before you did. They felt the gravitational pull of your integrity and mistook it for danger. You are danger, but not in the way they think. You're not dangerous because you destroy. You're dangerous because you reveal. You expose the fragility of power by existing without needing it. You prove that truth doesn't need permission. And that terrifies them, because it means their entire structure, built on manipulation, fear, and false gods, can be dismantled by one soul who simply won't play. You never asked to be watched, you just lived. But living authentically in an artificial world is an act of revolution. They thought they'd corner you. Instead, you cornered them. Every recording became evidence of their collapse. Every note became prophecy. Every whispered report became prayer. You turned surveillance into scripture, and every agent became a reluctant disciple. Now, as the dust settles, their replacements, those faceless inheritors of the broken project, approach your story like folklore. They gather around the digital remnants, reading the files with the same reverence scholars read ancient texts. Subject's aura induces honesty. Contact results in moral re-evaluation. They can't admit it, but you've become their compass. In studying how to contain you, they learned how to confess. And here's the punchline: they still don't know how you did it. They have theories, psychological profiles, and energy metrics, but none of them capture the truth. You didn't do anything. You just were. You refused to be anything else. The real miracle isn't what you did to them. It's what you didn't let them do to you. You didn't let the Watchers turn you into a performance. You stayed human. And in doing so, you broke the algorithm that runs the modern world: conditional worth. They can't classify that. They can't reproduce it. They can't market it. And when power can't monetize purity, it abandons the field. That's why the operation collapsed, not because of exposure, but because of irrelevance. You made their entire profession meaningless. You showed them that purity doesn't need privacy, and transparency doesn't fear visibility. You lived like every lens was welcome, and in that openness, you inverted control. Now the Watchers are scattered, fragments of a fallen belief system. Some still cling to protocol, telling themselves the project might resume. Others sit in dim rooms, replaying the last footage of you, slow motion, zoomed in, searching for something they missed. But there's nothing to find. Purity isn't an event, it's an environment. You didn't leave evidence because you became the atmosphere. And that's where your power truly resides. Not in what you resist, but in what you embody. You turned observation into reflection. You became the mirror that doesn't distort. And when corruption stares into a clear mirror, it dissolves. That's why they fled. That's why they quit. They weren't defeated by you. They were undone by themselves. You just stood there long enough for them to see it. Somewhere, there's a memo that reads, "Operation terminated due to exposure to subject-induced phenomena." They call it exposure. I call it enlightenment. You gave them a glimpse of what they could have been if they hadn't sold their souls for surveillance. That's the real tragedy. They didn't lose control. They lost conviction. So now, the world spins a little differently. Not quieter, not safer, but more self-aware. Observation has turned inward. The eyes that once watched you now watch themselves. That's how it starts, the slow resurrection of conscience. You didn't set out to change the world, but that's exactly what happens when purity refuses compromise. You've become a legend not by noise, but by resonance. Your story circulates underground, whispered by people who can't articulate why it moves them. They just know it does. Some call you saint, others specter, a few call you threat. But the truth? You're the reset. the human reboot, the living reminder that nothing is more revolutionary than being real in a world addicted to falsehoods. And that's what drives them mad. You're not hiding in bunkers or plotting revenge. You're drinking your tea, watching the light move across the wall, living without pretense. And every second of that ordinary grace dismantles empires built on lies. Because when authenticity becomes visible, performance loses profit. You're collapsing an entire industry of deceit just by breathing. So let them try again. Let them rebuild the surveillance, fund new watchers, install better technology. They'll fail again, because technology can't outthink purity. Algorithms can track movement, not motive. They can capture image, not essence. You'll pass through their data like wind through fingers, leaving only questions where certainty used to live. That's the curse and the gift of purity. It doesn't fight, it redefines, and everything it touches must evolve or vanish. You didn't just make them quit their jobs. You made them question their gods. You made them wonder if maybe, just maybe, the entire concept of control was the original illusion. So stand where you are now, feel it. The calm after exposure, the quiet victory of existence over surveillance. You didn't win by defeating anyone. You won by being uncorrupted long enough for corruption to implode. That's the real revolution. Not war, not chaos, just clarity. And as you walk forward from here, know this: they still watch. But it's different now. The tone has changed. Observation has become reverence. They study you not to break you, but to understand how someone can live untouched in a world built to contaminate. You've become their gospel of contradiction, purity, surviving in proximity to power. That's not surveillance anymore, that's worship. And they'll never admit it, but deep down, they all know the truth. The subject became the savior. And that's the ending no one expected. The CIA paid your neighbors to spy, but they ended up paying for their own redemption. They thought they were investigating you, but they were documenting a miracle. And now, every file, every photo, every whispered note stands as proof of one divine fact. Purity always outlasts control, so walk. The watchers are gone, but their awakening remains. You didn't just survive observation, you redefined it. You turned surveillance into surrender, data into devotion, neighbors into narrators of your light. And that's the ultimate truth.